Welcome to another installment of the Goddess Keys, where we remember and uncover all of the ways our divinity is already inside us, already activated. We just need to remember our sovereignty. And I'm so happy to be able to share these tools and jewels with you. In today's installment, we're going to be discussing maintaining our divine feminine frequency. Now, this topic is really not exclusive to gender, because this entire hologram that we're in, this false matrix simulation, and I do believe that this reality that we're in is a holographic reality. It's a holographic universe, meaning that it's going to look different depending upon what your perspective is or what your programming is. That being said, how do we maintain our divine feminine frequency, our sovereignty within this holographic universe? Because what will happen in the false matrix is that we'll maintain the reality of the false matrix programmers. And why do I call it false matrix? Because it is an inversion of universal law of creational law, which is upheld by the cosmic mother. Even when we think of the word matrix, it has the word mother in it, matrix, okay? But it's based upon a false mother, okay? It's based upon a simulation of creation, okay? So with that being said, how do we maintain our sovereignty? Well, we first recognize that we are in a simulation. And so what that means is that anything that's happening within your reality, knowing that with a shift in perspective or with an amount of deprogramming or intention setting, you can shift your holographic reality. So in order for these practices that I share on this page to really work for you, you need to know that this is a simulation, okay? That if it is a simulation, then you can change it. If this is a program, then you can update the program, all right? And that's not to say that it's always going to be easy or that there isn't some shadow work to do, but knowing that this is a simulation first and foremost will support you with reclaiming your power from the false matrix simulation. So this is kind of a continuation of the last talk that I did around the blessings of Saturn. And if this topic is at all interesting to you today that I shared, then I would definitely go back and listen to the blessings of Saturn if you haven't listened to that already. I'm kind of like creating a larger web of how to exit this false matrix simulation for folks who are seeking some very concrete tools and jewels, okay? And there's also going to be a subliminal that's going to be within this particular topic that we discussed today that will be released soon after this episode. So that's something you can also tap into. And subliminals are really great for setting your intention, getting into the frequency of the change that you wish to embody, and then watching your reality shift. And then if you want to go deeper with it, then there are very specific and tailored affirmations and numerical codes on the Patreon to support you with that. And I see each subliminal that I do as a form of activation or initiation. And a lot of times people ask me, well, how often do you listen to these subliminals? Or, how often does it take for them to work? And that really depends on you. For me, 2 to 3 times max is what supports me with my initiation and activation. And then I start to see my reality shift according to the intentions set in the subliminal. And then listening to the subliminal in a very meditative state, and receiving the codes and receiving the frequencies to support with shifting the simulation. All right. So that's just a little tidbit. Sometimes I do get questions about how these subliminals work. It really depends on you. I can't tell you what's going to work for you, but it's not something you have to listen to all day, every day. But, if that works for you, then that's fine too. It just really depends upon You and your consciousness. Okay. So on that note, that's a part of maintaining a divine feminine frequency, is getting into the concept of going dark. Going dark means going within. A lot of times the simulation will tell us that we need to do. We need to go out, we need to grind, we need to make things happen in order to see our reality shift. That's not true. Our perspective needs to shift. And in order for our perspective to shift, we go dark. We find times to turn within. And if you're finding that you have a lot of distractions in your reality, then that is a sign that some deep changes will need to be made, because ideally in your simulation, because this is your reality, all right, you are reclaiming your reality. That means that you can make those changes, right? So I would start very third dimensionally with it. If you are having difficulty with maintaining a divine feminine frequency because you feel like your time isn't yours, or you're being pulled in all of these different directions, then start with your calendar. All right. That's a very third dimensional way that you can reclaim your sacredness from the false matrix simulation. Start calendaring out time for your sacredness, where you're just you're just automatically unavailable, and you have the space and the flow to do you. All right. Because a big piece of changing up the algorithm of your simulation that you're in is going within, going dark. And dark is a very divine feminine frequency. So in this polarity-based system, we think of black as being bad, white as being good, dark as being negative, light as being positive. That is a part of the programming that we are also deprogramming within our consciousness as well. All right. And so the darkness is the divine feminine, if you want to even consider the womb. Okay. If we think about where we started before we entered this simulation, we were in the womb space. And in order to rebirth ourselves or midwife ourselves into this new reality that we're moving into, we go back into the womb space. We go back into the cosmic womb, and we will need to create that for ourselves. So that means that we become our mother in a lot of ways. We need to embody the divine feminine, and that means we embody all aspects of her. So that means embodying the mother, embodying the maiden, embodying the crone, all right, the wise woman, the young child, as well as the mother, all right. All of these things are very integral to maintaining a divine feminine frequency. But first and foremost, we start in the womb, and we create the cosmic womb in our own lives. And if we're having a difficult time with doing that, then that just is an indication of how tied up we're in the simulation. And that means that some very specific changes are going to need to be made with how you prioritize your time. All right. So that being said, going dark, going into the cosmic womb portal is a huge part of maintaining your divine feminine frequency. Once you have space to do that, and you start really looking at the ways that you've been programmed in the false matrix simulation, you go through a really big process of retrieving your power, reclaiming your power from the false matrix simulation. And this means retrieving your energy from all of the places that it's been siphoned from. All right. So because we're in an inverted system, a lot of us have been programmed to believe that we're less than, that we need a certain system to depend on in order for us to live or to survive, which is absolutely not true. As we exit the simulation, we realize that anything that we could possibly need, want, or desire comes from within, from a shift of our perspective and a shift within our consciousness. Sometimes this isn't as easy as just thinking positively. A lot of times this does mean a great deal of deprogramming, removing etheric implants, identifying places where artificial software and artificial programming is playing out into our reality, and retrieving our consciousness from it. So sometimes it's not as simple as thinking positive. Sometimes it's really about extricating yourself from the simulation in a very real and tangible way. All right. And that's going to be done within your etheric template. All right. A lot of times we talk about the 4 elements: earth, air, fire, water. But there's also ether. Ether is that 5th element. And as I mentioned with the blessings of Saturn talk that I did, Saturn is a very etheric sort of frequency. A lot of times we talk about Saturn as being an earth-based frequency, but more than that, it's ether. All right. And so the false matrix simulation has been based upon the manipulation of the planet Saturn. And with that, it's been created through the manipulation of the element of ether. This is where etheric implants come into play. All right. So this is why we're not taught about our etheric selves within this simulation, because our etheric selves are being manipulated within this simulation. This is why we go to the source. This is why we go to ether. And this is why we go dark, because as we are doing and participating within the simulation, we can't go to the source to reprogram ourselves. I hope that makes sense. Okay. So a big piece of maintaining your divine feminine frequency is, number 1, finding time and space to go dark, finding time and space to turn within, to not see the world that you are within your waking state in as being the all. All right. That is not the all. The all lies within. The all lies within your cosmic womb. So maintaining your divine feminine frequency means finding the time and space to go dark and reclaiming your time and energy from the programming which said that you're not worthy of rest, or that you don't have the time to reflect. Okay. Those are programs, and those are basically attacking your ability to thrive. Okay. And so those must be nipped in the bud in order for you to maintain a divine feminine frequency. Once you do that, once you go dark, you start really tapping into your etheric template and being able to see where your consciousness has been siphoned in the etheric realm, and start deprogramming those implants, locating those implants, and then deprogramming them. Okay. This is why I share a lot of content as it relates to healing etheric implants. So you can start by looking at the subliminal playlist on my page and looking for the different etheric implant ones. There are many etheric implants. It's not just like one and done. There's a lot. I'm not going to lie, but this is a marathon, not a sprint. And as we retrieve our consciousness a little bit more and more every day, we start noticing more spaciousness in our reality, more freedom, more sovereignty, more joy within our reality. Okay. So you can definitely check out some of the etheric implant subliminals specifically. So like if you're having issues as it relates to your heart, there's different etheric implants that you would want to locate within your heart. Sometimes if you're having a difficult time with forgiveness, it's not necessarily because you're a bad person and you can't forgive. You might be literally locked into an etheric program, which makes it difficult for you to forgive. Okay. Same thing with your throat. A lot of us have issues with our throat and self-expression. This has been a huge tool which has been used to siphon our energy within the false matrix simulation, because ideally, your throat, you should be able to speak things into existence. And so the ability to not speak things into existence is a result a lot of times of your tool to navigate and create your reality being siphoned, or also being controlled. Okay. So you would want to work through your throat. And there are many, many different layers. And if you're interested in going deeper, then the Patreon has a lot of different goodies, a lot of different decrees, subliminals, meditations to support you with identifying different etheric implants that might be kind of manipulating your reality. So check out the Patreon as well. Now, on that note, after you get into the practice of locating etheric implants, really checking in on what's happening within your etheric template, another thing that you're going to want to do to maintain your divine feminine frequency is to work on your energetic field and claiming the sovereignty of your energetic field, the movement, I should say, of your energetic field. So you start with retrieving your energetic field from different etheric implants, because you can envision that these are like different siphons that kind of block your energy from flowing freely. So the false matrix simulation has us in this very closed loop system where it seems as though there's not enough, and that we have to fight for scraps, and that we need to compete. Okay. And that's why a lot of times we end up in situations that aren't of our best interest, because we think we can't do any better and we have to take what we can get. This is part of the programming of the false matrix simulation. And a lot of times there are programs within our energetic field that perpetuate this programming. Okay. But the reality is that if we create our reality, and if we are tapped into source, we are in an open source reality. Okay. So I want you to think about this as in terms of the internet. So 20, 30 years ago, the internet wasn't what it was today. All right. There was a lot more closed source information. If you really wanted to find out information, what would you need to do? You'd need to go to the library. You would maybe not even have Google. Maybe you would literally need to go and locate a very particular book, wait for the book to come into the mail, pay a lot of money to get that particular book if you weren't able to find it in the library. Maybe you would need to go through that thing they used to call, microfiche, where you're like looking through old articles, old newspapers, and you would need to physically go into a place to do that. That would be more of a closed loop information system, right? But now with the internet, a lot of things have become more open source. All right. There's a lot of stuff that we can find for free or for our very low cost if we just kind of do a little bit more research. In a lot of ways, the advent of the internet has opened up our reality in certain ways. Okay. And so we want to think of our energetic field in the same way. We are moving into an open source energy system. All right. Where we're moving outside of this scarcity-based consciousness. And if we are the creators and the source of our reality, and if we tap into our cosmic source or our cosmic womb, our cosmic creation portal, we're able to retrieve the resources that we need to thrive outside of dependency or codependency. All right. So a big piece of maintaining sovereignty within your energetic field is going to be unlearning codependency, knowing that it comes from within. And, this is easier said than done. This takes time. All right. This starts with looking at the relationships that you spend most of your day in. And this isn't just the relationships that you have with people in your life, but also with institutions, with social media platforms, that sort of thing. So, a lot of this piece of deprogramming ourselves outside of the false matrix simulation also means harm reduction. So this isn't something that's done overnight, but we find ways to reduce the harm of living within the false matrix simulation. And we can do stuff like take, for example, social media detoxes. All right. If you find yourself in a loop where you're doing the same thing every day, you're reading the same kind of content on the same website at the same time every day, switch up your algorithm and open up your access to your resources. Remember that you're in an open source system. So if you find yourself in a loop, catch yourself and open up your reality and world, because there's a lot of different information sources out there. So you want to make sure that you are switching up your algorithm quite literally with the sort of like content that you're searching for on social media. Okay. Another thing though is your energetic field. All right. So I want to take the example of the beehive. All right. The beehive is a really great example of the divine feminine frequency. Okay. So the bees, honey, and the honeycomb, the beehive, all of this represents creation, divine feminine creation. And it's very telling that we're having issues within our world today as it relates to the bees. There's this talk right now around how some bees are going extinct, or we don't have as many bees as we used to. And that's a sign within the hologram that divine feminine frequency is not being honored. All right. So this is one reason why we exit out of this particular holographic reality, so that we can create a reality that actually is infused with creativity. All right. So if we're living in a world where the bees are not thriving, then we're living in a world where creativity isn't thriving. So we want to exit that reality and create a reality where creativity does thrive. If you are embodying a divine feminine frequency, you might have an affinity with bees. You might find that bees tend to be around you a lot. That's a great sign that you are not tapped into the false matrix simulation, and that you have access to a much more organic creative template. If bees surround you, and not in a menacing kind of way, but more in like a playful kind of way, and are just attracted to your energy field, then that is a sign that you are tapped into source creation. So definitely work with the frequency of the bee, learn from the frequency of the bee, start looking at the bee as a form of an animal totem to support you with maintaining a divine feminine frequency. So we're going to talk about the energetic field from the beehive. And like I say very often, because we live in an inverted system, a lot of times our strengths are going to be seen as our greatest weakness. So even though the beehive and the bee can represent divine feminine creation, it's also been inverted and utilized as a form of mind control, the beehive. Okay. So it's a both and kind of thing. All right. A lot of times because of the inverted system, we need to find out where our strengths have become our weakness in this particular simulation. All right. So let's first start off with how the beehive can be a divine feminine frequency that we can access. An assignment I'm going to kind of give y'all, or like a research topic that y'all can start looking into. I'm going to talk about it a little bit, but I want y'all to actually go out and find this information for yourself. Start looking at the symbolism as it relates to the beehive and creativity and the divine feminine, because it is definitely this imagery of the beehive is very much embedded in a lot of esoteric knowledge, in a lot of different logos and symbols. A lot of different sports teams will have things related to the bee and the beehive. So I want you to go out and search those things, because there's a reason for that. So it does represent the source of the structure of civilization, I will say. Okay, because you have the queen bee, who kind of directs all of the other bees, which are known as drones, to create this beautiful beehive, and basically to create this really amazing substance called honey. Okay. Now, if you look at the beehive, or the honeycomb, you'll notice that it's made out of a lot of the same part. So you see the hexagram. The hexagram is foundational within this false matrix simulation. You also notice that there's a hexagram on the planet Saturn. That's something I mentioned in the last talk. So once again, we're seeing this similarity with structure and Saturn as it relates to this, even this divine feminine frequency. This is why I say that Saturn is more of a divine feminine frequency. Okay, a lot of times it's painted to be masculine. It's actually feminine. All right. Even if we think about certain religions, there's a lot of religion is very Saturnian. Okay, from Christianity with the cross, that's a very Saturnian symbol, to Islam with Mecca and the black box. Okay, Islam, I would say, is probably the most Saturnian religion that we have, even if you think of how regimented that religion is, right? How you're really expected to have a very set routine, a very set prayer routine every single day. And, that's very Saturnian within itself. And then there's this pilgrimage made to literally worship this black box. Really what that represents is the cosmic womb, interestingly enough, okay? And even if you think about the cube and the way, and this, it kind of also represents the structure of the false matrix simulation. But in all actuality, they're worshiping the cosmic womb, okay? Because what did we say at the beginning of this? The womb, the divine feminine, is dark, okay? And even let's think about it. What is the vagina is sometimes referred to. Sometimes it's referred to as a box. Okay, they're going to worship a black box. So it's just kind of interesting with the inverted system, how all that's going down, and yet there's also a huge subjugation of women that's happening within that same religion. Okay, so it's pretty interesting how information and practices get inverted, and yet there is a fundamental cosmic truth that you can easily locate. So with that being said, back to the beehive, look at the hexagrams that are on this honeycomb. When we're in the false matrix simulation, we can think of each of us as representing one of these hexagrams, okay? So if we stay within the illusion of the false matrix, we each have a little hexagram in here, and there is a queen bee, which is directing our moves, and basically we don't really have any space, freedom, or autonomy to do anything else outside of what is instructed by the queen bee. Now, in the false matrix simulation, the queen bee represents the theys, the powers that be, whatever you call them. Okay, whether that's the 1% or the government, et cetera, that would represent the queen bee. Okay, but if we acknowledge that we are the creators of our reality, what does that mean? That means that we represent the all. We represent not only the honeycomb, not only the honey, but we also represent the bee. Okay, this is what it means to have a sovereign energetic field. Okay, now there's been a lot of the geometry of the false matrix simulation has been based upon Merkaba mechanics, very like angular sort of frequencies, straight lines, whether that is a cross or a box or a pyramid. Okay, and straight lined energy flow is a very electrical form of programming. It's very essential for the false matrix simulation to keep us within electrical kind of programming and geometry, because we're a lot easier to control that way. It's really easy to cord into us energetically, to energetically siphon from us if we stay within the straight lined energy system. Okay. Now, if we become the honeycomb, though, if we become the beehive, there is no control. We're out of that closed loop system, and we are embodying source creator consciousness. So to get to this point, it requires a great deal of ego training, clearing your subconscious mind, reclaiming your subconscious mind, like really looking at the different soul contracts or the karmic storylines that have been playing out in your reality. Okay, so this is something that takes a while because, once you get out of that victim program of things are happening to you, people are doing things to you, you get out of your small little hexagram, and then you start creating your reality and you embody the beehive. Okay, I'm going to give you a little story on this. As I mentioned at the beginning, we live in a holographic universe. We live in a hologram. And once you start seeing that we live in a hologram and that each person's hologram is going to vary slightly depending on each person's consciousness, you can actually start looking at your external reality, whatever's going on within your external reality, and it's going to show you the different patterns that are coming up to be transmuted. You could literally start utilizing your outside world to see what you are here to alchemize within your hologram today. And, that can be anything from number sequences that you see animals or plants that you see within your reality, signs or symbols that are within your reality, I would highly recommend paying attention to those things. It's not by accident, okay? Once you decide to exit the false matrix simulation and you decide that you are the creator of your reality, you can very much utilize your seemingly external reality to support you with what you'll need to alchemize in the next phase of your liberation journey. So on this particular day, so this was a couple months ago, and I was in Egypt. I was getting some paperwork done in Egypt, and I was alchemizing through a lot of like the fall of matriarchy or the divine feminine. You know, back in the day, long time ago, the divine feminine was kind of like the all, was perceived as being the all on this planet. From the times of parthenogenesis, where women would literally self-create, where they wouldn't need a male counterpart in order to conceive life into this world. And then there was also the time of feminine rulership, feminine matriarchy. And so one thing that my journey has been guiding me to do over the past couple of years has been to really identify the parts in different timelines where matriarchies fell and why they fell, and also doing the shadow work around the feminine and the feminine's role within the imbalance that was created within matriarchies, which caused another form of imbalance through extreme patriarchy. So these have been certain storylines that I have been alchemizing in my own personal reality. And at this particular time in Egypt, it was very strong. Like I was dealing with certain aspects related to the masculine. And I was feeling like in my external reality that I was getting issues of like not feeling fully respected by the masculine, particularly when I was in Egypt at the time. And a lot of that was like different karmic storylines that I was playing out. A lot of that was different ancestors kind of speaking to me about their stories. And a lot of that was different subconscious programming that I was working through. But on this particular day, I kept getting the image of the bee. And the bee was just very much sticking out to me, either bees around me, bee symbolism, just with me walking or seeing different signs. It was very clear that the bee was in my consciousness, and that was something to focus on. And so one thing that I set the intention on this particular day was to embody the beehive. That as I went out, because I had to get these particular errands done, and me being from the United States, errands or, getting paperwork done in Egypt is just different. So I knew I needed to kind of maintain a sovereign energy field in order to get through a lot of the different rigmarole that I would need to get through on this particular day. So, my higher self instructed me to embody the beehive, and so that's what I did. So instead of feeling like I was just another number, just another drone, I was setting the intention to embody the frequency of the beehive. And so I would remind myself of that time to time if I felt frustrated or that sort of thing. I was going back and forth this day. I was trying to get this particular paperwork completed, but I needed to go to this different place to get that. And basically I needed to pay for something in US dollars. So I had to go get money from my account, go and exchange the money from Egyptian pounds to US dollars. So it was a whole big thing, right? So I'm at the currency exchange place, long line, and everybody's kind of impatient. It's hot. We're all standing and waiting. And this guy cuts in front of me. And a part of my consciousness was like, okay, maybe I'll just say, hey, don't cut in front of me, that sort of thing. But there's a few things going on. Number one, there's a language barrier. I don't speak Arabic, right? And then also I'm in this frequency of embodying the beehive and resting in my feminine. And this idea of resting in my feminine also has to do with this embodiment of the beehive. Because if I represent the beehive, I don't need to fight for anything. Things just kind of work within my ecosystem the way I set the intention to do so. So it was irritating to see this guy cut in front of me, but I was like, you know what? I release it, I rest in my feminine, and I'm just going to embody the beehive. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just embodying the beehive, standing in line. This guy cuts in front of me. And because I shifted my frequency, my holographic reality shifted. And so this is what happened. There was a man that was right next to me. Okay. I think he might have been behind me. Okay. No, he was actually in front of me. But he saw the guy cut in front of me, and then he went up next and he started yelling at the guy. Okay, he was yelling at the guy, he was yelling at the clerk. I don't speak Arabic, but he was seeming to suggest like, hey, this guy's trying to cut. He just tried to cut in front of this woman. He's yelling at him, and then the guy's just, the guy who cut, he's like standing firm in his decision to cut in line. He was like, no, I was here first, that sort of thing. And he was like, no, you're lying, or, they're going back and forth. And this guy's basically fighting on my behalf. And I think it's really interesting because I was dealing with this concept of feeling like not fully respected by men in my reality, and embodying the beehive. I literally had this guy like fighting on my behalf for my place in line. Okay. And so I'm just chilling. I'm not saying anything. I'm not arguing. I'm just hanging out. And, they're going back and forth. This guy isn't budging. He's claiming that, this is his space in line. And then the clerk, he asked me, he's like, hey, what do you want to do about this? I'm like, well, I have some documents to turn in. Like it's, I am on a time crunch. And then literally when I say that, the whole line is like yelling at him in Arabic to get in the back, to get in the back, basically, And basically me resting in my feminine, me embodying the beehive, had my surroundings advocate for me. Okay. This is how this works. This is how it can work. I was like, wow, okay, noted. And that's the divine feminine frequency. You don't have to fight. You don't have to argue. You just need to embody the frequency and your world shifts, okay? Because we are in a holographic reality. All right. So each person's hologram is going to look different. And ideally, if we're embodying the beehive from a place of sovereignty and empowerment, then our frequency can cause our hologram, our algorithm, our reality to shift on our behalf. And we don't have to fight from within the system. We become the system, and it advocates for us. Okay, that's just a small example of how that happens. Okay, so that's an example of embodying the beehive, embodying the divine feminine frequency from an empowered state. So now let's talk a little bit about how the beehive has been used against us. So I recently shared a short on this page around this process of deprogramming the hive mind, how sometimes we need to exit out of certain friend groups just so we can retrieve our consciousness from different mind control programs that we've been subjected to within the false matrix simulation. This is a form of what is called swarm intelligence, okay? So this is from Ascension Glossary. It says, swarm intelligence can be used to collect artificial frequencies to manifest artificial or virtual realities for projecting holograms so that a group of people believes that this is real. Also, what may be noticed with swarm intelligence is that the exact same automatic phrases or verbatim responses are given as pre-programmed solutions to answer the same program. Pre-programmed answers are presented as a solution. Don't look here, look over there. Made especially clear in unapproved areas of media or public discussion with people that have mind slides. Mind slides are basically holographic inserts. This is a form of etheric implants that we'll need to locate and take out of our consciousness. This is going to be found a lot of times within our cranium, around our third eye, around our crown chakra region, different parts of our brains that will change our perception of what is real and what is happening. It says the repeated phrases are programmed robotic responses that feel artificial and odd as they come from different people, but are actually connected to the same artificial frequencies of that particular swarm intelligence. So this is a huge part of like the way trends happen, what is in, what is out. A lot of this is done through swarm intelligence, this beehive intelligence. But instead of you embodying the beehive, you are the drone. Okay. So one thing that we talk about, a lot of folks who are exiting this false matrix simulation, we talk about this concept of NPCs, non-playing characters. These people that seem to be in our reality that are like monitoring spirits, or that aren't really fully soul infused, or that are kind of here to like thwart us, or like are kind of karmic people in our lives. And we usually look at this from a very external sort of thing. But my invitation to you today is to look at the way that you have been programmed to be an NPC through mind control, through mind slides. If you have mind slides within you, or holographic inserts within you in this now moment, then you might have different NPC programs running within you. Okay. And so one thing about exiting the false matrix simulation and embodying your own sovereignty is you take full responsibility for anything that shows up in your reality. So if you're seeing a lot of mind control manipulation around you, you don't just look at it from the external, but you focus internally with how you have internalized mind control, and you work on the process of deprogramming yourself from mind control, all the ways that you've been subjected to drone-based thinking. And no matter how smart we are, no matter how much of an alchemist we are, we've all been subjected to this programming. If we are experiencing any form of limitation within our reality, it is a sign that we have been subjected to some form of etheric implanting technology, some form of mind control, which makes us seem as though we're not capable or that we're constricted in some way. Okay, this is how this closed loop system has been maintained. So to continue this conversation and to continue this exploration of embodying your divine feminine frequency, definitely check out the subliminal that's coming up as it relates to beehive energy flow, getting you in that frequency of the beehive where you're not the drone. You encompass the beehive, the queen bee, and the honey, the whole system. It's all within you. Getting out of any drone-based thinking, okay? So that's the first thing. Another thing that you can do is start looking at the esoteric symbolism of the bee, of the honeycomb, and see where that takes you, okay? Because a lot of the way that this false matrix simulation has been orchestrated and organized has been based upon the inversion of divine feminine principles. Even if we think about that black box that I mentioned earlier with Mecca, how so many people each year will make that pilgrimage and swarm around that black box, that queen bee, right? To give their energy to it, which is really just the cosmic womb at the end of the day. Very Saturnian. This is all very Saturnian stuff. And I'm going to be focusing a lot more on Saturn and the mechanics of Saturn, because this is a firm thing that we will need to master as we exit this simulation. Okay. And we retrieve our consciousness from the simulation. So if you're interested in taking a deep dive, check out the links below for different coaching journeys that I am offering. Sending you lots of love and joy on your path to liberation. Until we meet again. Bye.